Thanks for joining in today. I hope everything's going well. Today's challenge, we're going to be in Judges chapter 2. Judges chapter 2, verse 2, it says, "And ye shall make no league with the inhabitants of this land, and ye shall throw down their altars, but ye have not obeyed my voice. And why have you done this?" I've been reading through the book of Judges. About a month ago, I was reading through the book of Judges, and I keep going back to it. And God's been showing me a lot of different things in the book of Judges. But to start off the book of Judges, we see the children of Israel. You know what? God had delivered the children of Israel out of Egypt, and he had delivered them through the wilderness, and he did many miracles for them. He always provided for them. He kept them safe. And we see the children of Israel, that they're finally starting to get into the promised land and to do what God had commanded them to do. And we see that God had used the children of Israel, and God had given them victories and all this and that. But we see in chapter 1, verse 28, and it says, "And it came to pass when Israel was strong, they put the Canaanites to tribute. It did not utterly drive them out." And when I read that verse, it really spoke to me. And the phrase, "when Israel was strong," so many times in our Christian lives, we get to the point where we think we're good enough, where we think that we are in a good state, and we get complacent to where we're at. And the children of Israel had many victories to this point. And you know what? It said the children of Israel were strong. And then it said they put the Canaanites to tribute. And I have 4 quick points I want to point out today. One, Israel forgot their calling and purpose. Israel forgot their calling and purpose. So when Israel became strong, and when Israel became they could take care of themselves, they forgot their calling and their purpose. Their calling and their purpose was to utterly drive out the Canaanites. And we see that in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 2. And sometimes in our Christian lives, we forget our calling and our purpose. What is something God has called you to do? What is something God has given you a purpose to do in your life? What mission has God sent you on? Have you forgotten the mission? Have you forgotten what God has called you to do? Today, remember what God has called you to do. Have you forgotten it? Have you gotten lazy with it? Have you not stayed committed to it? We see the children of Israel, when they became strong, they forgot their calling. Point number 2 is, when they became strong, they forgot God and the victory. So many times God gives us victory. So many times God gives us victory over temptation, victory over different things in our life. Maybe something we've been praying about. God answers prayers, and God has given us the victory. But sometimes we forget God and the victory. Sometimes we begin to think, oh, I'm good enough. Oh, I don't need God in this situation. Oh, I'm not going to seek God in prayer in this time. Or you might start forgetting. Maybe you might have victory, and you might start forgetting to read your Bible. You might start forgetting to pray. You might start forgetting the little things that you've been doing faithfully because you've been having victory. The children of Israel forgot God in victory. Point number 3 is that the children of Israel forgot about their commitment to God. You know what? In Joshua, it said, "Choose you whom this day whom you will serve." And the children of Israel chose to live for God. And you know what? They started faithfully. But at some point, they gradually slipped away. They gradually became to the point where they thought they were in control of these situations. They thought they were in control of these battles. And you know what? They put the Canaanites to tribute. And they didn't utterly drive them out. So many times in our life, we have sins that are in our life, and we get to the point where we had victory over them, but we allowed them to stay. You know what? The children of Israel, they had victory, and they allowed their sins to stay with them. And they didn't utterly drive them out. They didn't remember their calling. They didn't remember their purpose. They didn't remember their commitment to God to follow him. Sometimes we've made commitments to God. We've made decisions for Christ, but we've gotten we've forgotten where we came from. We've forgotten our commitment, and we have allowed sin to stay in our life. Where we said, oh, I'm doing good in my Christian walk, but I have this one struggle, I have this one temptation, and we allowed it to stay. We didn't utterly drive out the temptation. We didn't utterly destroy the sin in our life. We allowed it to stay. And you know what? The children of Israel, lastly, they forgot about the impact of disobedience. The children of Israel have always followed God and then fallen away, followed God and fallen away, and they forgot what happens when they disobeyed God. And chapter 2, verse 3 says, "Wherefore I also said, I will not drive them out from before you, but they shall be as thorns in your side, and their God shall be a snare unto you." We've all had times in our life where we've made a commitment for God. We've made a decision for Christ. We've had victory that God has given to us. And God has saved us from a life a life of sin that we could have been falling into, but God has saved us out of it. But so many little times we disobey God in the little things, and those little things will affect us. The way it happened to the children of Israel, it said, as the thorns in your side, their God shall be a snare unto you. Because they didn't utterly drive out what God told them to drive out, there were thorns that were going to affect them. There were things that were going to come in their way. You know what? They thought they were strong. They thought they could do it on their own. They thought they became to a point where they didn't need God as much. In our Christian life, we always need God. We need to seek God first. We need to always seek God in prayer through the scriptures. And everything that we do, we need to seek God. Don't forget God in your purpose. Don't forget God. Don't forget God from your calling. Don't forget God in your victory. Don't forget God. Don't forget about your commitments to God, and don't forget about the impact of disobedience, because sin will destroy your life. Sin will take you down. Don't allow sin to stay in your life. Totally, utterly destroy it. You know how you can do that today? By seeking God, by asking God to give you strength, because you can't do it on your own. Don't be like Israel. Don't become strong in your life and forget God. Become strong in the Lord. Thank you for your time.